4 service members from the U.S. Losing their lives in this Operation Epic Fury. Good morning, Jack, Heath, J-Dog on the boards. Welcome to March. It is Monday. We have some nice clear skies out there, a little more chilly temperatures today and tomorrow before things get back to feeling more spring-like. But obviously at a very event-filled weekend with news happening, day 3 now. And we have a bunch of updates live this morning for you. Everything from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth's briefing this morning. Members of Congress, the so-called Gang of 8, are going to be receiving briefings on the U.S. Israeli-led military operation against Iran. And then more members, House and Senate, expected to be briefed more tomorrow. But key members, there's 8 of them, will be briefed today by the administration. Secretary Hegseth already speaking this morning. We'll see if President Trump goes beyond Truth Social and does an address to the American people. We're going to get into a lot of this morning with people like Dean Spiliotis, Southern New Hampshire University, one of our great political contributors and academics, and he'll explain a little bit in this era the process of notifying Congress by the White House on a situation like this, a military operation. The president's referred to it as war. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, has this morning as well, saying we didn't start this war, but with Israel, we're going to get this done, and we'll see where it goes. But markets, we're going to get an update from Doug Tengden. On the economic side, World Market Advisors in the next hour, because as you can imagine, the uncertainty, markets don't like uncertainty, and the price of crude oil going up this morning. So Dow futures were down this morning, and the market was down probably another, I'm guessing, 400 or 500 today. Now, this could be short-lived or not. Things I'm keeping an eye on are places like Straits of Hormuz, where about a fifth of the world's oil will pass through, and Iran will try and block that, and we should keep that open because it's not just us. China, you name it, people want oil to flow through there, but this is obviously an ongoing situation. And who would have thought? And who would have thought that the supreme leader, if you will, of Iran would be taken out on that attack Saturday morning? CIA intel had him at a meeting in Tehran at his so-called palace. Up to 500 of his top folks have been taken out. So-called military command has been taken out, but Iran is still firing back here and there. I imagine this is going to continue the next few days, at least into the week, and other nations around. The situation with Kuwait was an accidental situation with some of our fighter pilots hitting them. They bailed out, and I guess they're recovering. But obviously a very tenuous, very real, very serious situation. It's been brewing for some time. Yours truly, had said on Friday, when I heard that the ambassador Huckabee had said in Israel, telling embassy staff to get out on Friday, get a plane out today. There may be no more planes over the weekend. If that wasn't a clear message that we were getting close. And if you remember these talks that were happening in the country, they were being hosted, as of Thursday night when they broke off again, the feeling was, and one thing about this President Trump, when he says something, as Secretary of State Rubio says he means it, but he kept saying to Iran and the leaders, agree to something, agree to this deal on nuclear capabilities, and you not having any in terms of, scrapping your nuclear ambitions, agree to a deal or else. And you could feel this coming all week. And Friday, when I heard that from the ambassador, our ambassador in Israel, to tell embassy folks to get out, you could feel this coming. Of course, Israel's been rather tense because they've been taking some direct hits from Iran-funded terrorist groups like Hezbollah, as well as Iran. But so far, this is a situation where I think now it's going to be interesting to see what powers emerge in Tehran, who's communicating with whom, what's left after we took out their top command, including the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, who's been ruling that country with an iron hand for decades. And this is rather surreal to really see this happening. Members of Congress, including our own delegation in New Hampshire, want more involvement and, want to be involved with the White House and the administration on the situation in Iran. And it raises the questions, when former President Obama was president, how many independent drone and missile strikes did he order, including the ultimate given the green light, and I'm glad he did, the SEAL team and the pilots to go into sovereign Pakistan to take out bin Laden, the world's #1 terrorist from 9/11, the mastermind, and we got him. Certain members of Congress, and I think as I said, and I said this over the weekend, applauded that. Former President Obama to greenlight that at getting bin Laden, but certain members of Congress, for example, from Massachusetts now, that are blasting President Trump for doing this attack with Israel, saying it's not legal or constitutional. They were not saying that then, but of course, this debate in Congress is going to continue. And I think today, the so-called Gang of Eight are going to be briefed. And then tomorrow, more members of the House and Senate will be briefed. Where this goes from here, I don't think anyone knows unless you're involved in intelligence. And certainly the strike against the folks who have been running Iran was significant. In fact, a little bit mind-boggling to realize this happened, that we were able to do this with Israel. And you have to remember the situation in Iran leading up to this Saturday morning, this past Saturday, was very tense. And look at how many thousands of people have been protesting against this regime, wanting a change. President Trump this morning or last night saying to the Iranian people, this is now your time, take over the government. He's been trying to send those messages, as have our people communicating to whoever is left running Tehran. No doubt the people there are probably very confused, very uncertain because of how many were killed by this regime, this fundamentalist Islamic regime, in terms of their uprising recently. But the situation now obviously is what the former crown prince of Iran and the history there, as well as Americans in Israel, would love a regime change, who would love more of a democratic system to come in. We'll see where that goes. But it's rather remarkable to see this impact and the ripples across the Middle East. This has been brewing for some time, and this administration and Israel working together again, and we'll see where it goes. But we're going to hear some local perspective. Alicia Preston-Xanthopoulos, Seacoast Online, was writing about this over the weekend. She has some interesting perspectives. We're going to hear from John Decker, our own White House correspondent, this morning as well on the latest. I think today and tomorrow and Wednesday will be very fluid. Markets will be very volatile. Markets don't like uncertainty like this. This is a real situation in the Middle East. Things I'm watching are Russia and China. I don't really care what the comments are publicly, including from Putin, but just any actions that they might take or not take. But so far, you're seeing you saw the strike of the hotel in Dubai. We're going to actually, J-Dog, I do remember who our 10 o'clock guest is. Someone who's been to Dubai quite often. Our own Dr. Vic is going to talk about the Middle East and the economy. You're going to see a lot of uncertainty on things like the price of oil and crude and impact on markets, because this is not a small event. This is a rather significant event in the Middle East. One would only hope that it stays localized to the situation in Iran and things start to sort out there in terms of who's going to be running the show. Is there going to be regime change? Who's going to take over? There's already been a sort of an interim group name, but do they really have the power? What will the military do? You've seen a lot of situations where you've had the supreme leader of Iran ran everything, the military, everything. I mean, it was his way or no way. And it'll be interesting to see how some of the military react now going forward. If they want I don't think they want to test the will of the United States or Israel. I imagine some strategic bombings are going to continue inside Iran until they kind of break that juggernaut. We'll see where it goes. But more questions probably than not this morning after a very, very eventful weekend. Hope you had a good weekend. Otherwise, we are into March, and we'll fill you in on some of the other news, but it's hard not to look at the Middle East. Our poll question this morning up on XJ Dog, and we'll have results from Friday's show. Friday, we asked you about affordable housing. This morning, we're just asking you up on X at the Pulse of NH, do you think this will be a prolonged war in Iran with the U.S. and Israel or not? Do you think it'll be a prolonged war? Can it get more, is it going to be a long-term situation that will involve more powers in the Middle East or not? Do you think it'll be prolonged war, yes or no? And the results from Friday, J-Dog, on affordable housing here at home.
Will housing become more affordable in New Hampshire in 2026? 85.7% saying no, 14.3% saying yes.
All right. Hey, Alexa, Google Play the Pulse of an H. That's just a briefing on the news. We have some cooler weather or colder weather today and tomorrow, but it looks like we're getting back to a little bit of the nicer stuff. Saturday was obviously beautiful. I think it was up near 46, 47 for a high. And I want to thank my friends at the Military Officers of America. A great luncheon on Saturday. It was a very good day to be with a lot of military when our troops were in harm's way with what was going on in the Middle East. And I appreciate the recognition from them for my show on their Granite Warrior Awards, and also congrats to TurboCam over in Barrington, a great defense contractor, the team at TurboCam in Barrington. But our friends at the Military Officers Group of America, it was great to be with them on Saturday, and we'll have more on that. But our upcoming May 13th, Make 12 Hours Count for Veterans Count, part of Easter Seals, my 12th annual vetscount.org. We'll tell you more about that as we get closer. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play The Pulse of an H. We're back in a moment.
Sundays at 3 on the Now, back to Jack on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
You know, the reaction here in New England and other states to what happened Saturday morning It's been mixed, but it's been a lot of positive support. WCVB in Boston had hundreds of people on Saturday celebrating with the former Iranian flag and U.S. flag, saying "Make Tehran, make Iran great again," and they were celebrating the death of the Ayatollah. By the way, the Ayatollah, people don't know this, had been ruling Iran since 1989 until he was taken out with his commands Saturday morning. And that's a long time. But reaction's been mixed. One of the gubernatorial candidates running in New York, I just know his last name is Blakeman. He was responding on his own social media to show you how emotional this is to some Columbia University students, old Columbia, count on them for a lot of things that get your blood pressure going. And he said to the students who were chanting Saturday at Columbia, chanting "Death to America" in New York City, get the blank out. Get the blank out, meaning get out of the country. But that's from a guy running for governor in New York. But reaction's been interesting right here at home. Alicia Preston-Xanthopoulos, regular contributor, Seacoast Online. She's been posting some interesting things over the weekend on her thoughts, her concerns about what you can, what you want to raise questions about and reactions. But good morning, APX.
Good morning, Jack. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Well, certainly big news. It's ongoing. It's by the hour now, by the minute. What have you, as someone who comments on news like this, what have you sort of found on your feelings over the weekend and reactions from people who read and listen and watch what you do on Seacoast Online?
First of all, I would like to note, and my Facebook page is open, Alicia Xanthopoulos, that's with an X. I just posted this morning an article I wrote 6 years ago about my deep personal experience as a 7-year-old child with the hostages that came home from Iran. I have a very personal experience with this, and I would like people to read that to understand where I come from. That being said, I don't know if what we did is right or wrong. I don't know. We shall see as the days move on. What I do know, and it's something else that I posted this weekend, is I have the right to disagree or question my government. And what has bothered me in the last 72 hours is that I've been called a traitor for simply questioning whether we should be doing this. And we have to understand it is profoundly American to question your government. It is profoundly Iranian to be called a traitor for doing so. And I think we have to walk this line and understand we're allowed to question our government. I don't know if this is the right thing to do. I'm scared. I got to be honest. Like, Iran's a bad country.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled that Khamenei is dead. I'm thrilled that he's no longer there. And if you read my article that I wrote 6 years ago on my Facebook page, you will see why. I am thrilled this guy is no longer in charge. And I hope the people of Iran are able to rise up and take over their government. I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Right.
But I hope they do.
Right. Right.
That does not mean I think this is not a scary situation we just got our country into.
Right. And there's many unknowns. And a lot of people over the weekend I was talking to who are close to me were asking me about the depth of sleeper cells here, our own National Guard. And we should be on a heightened security alert because we know what one individual can do who wants to hurt innocent people here in America. But as I pointed out over the weekend, and it plays to your point a little bit, those sleeper cells were already here.
Right.
And you can live in fear. I even said to a younger person over the weekend who doesn't really, and I guess I get that. I went to a military luncheon. We were talking about the importance of history, and you were talking about it. And you respect history, but people don't really remember much, and they should, about World War II and the Nazis. But after we defeated Hitler and his gang, as well as the Japanese, more Nazis than the Japanese, they were Nazi sleeper cells right here in New England, and they had infiltrated near train stations, and they were spies living among us from that. But what happened is they disliked Nazi Germany so much they ended up wanting to stay here and married people here, and we never knew about this, but they were here. So we can live in fear, or we can do this. The thing I have to point out when people get a little bit carried away here, and they were very approving of getting bin Laden in Pakistan. And again, this is where people don't know their history. You do. Just give me a moment on this, please. This is cathartic. When I met the SEAL team commander, he's been up to New Hampshire a lot, who put together the team that got bin Laden in Pakistan. People don't know Pakistan at the time was a sovereign nation. Okay. President Obama, and I applaud him for doing this, by the way, green-lighted a stealth operation into Pakistani airspace, Pakistan, sovereign nation, to go take out bin Laden, who really the Pakistanis were harboring right near their military academy in his compound. We went in, and it was a kill mission, took him out, and we killed him. We got him. And most people were applauding that because he was the number one world terrorist guy after 9/11. And I think 98% of the people in America weren't chanting death to America. They were applauding America for doing that. I don't want to make an intellectual discussion case, but this is cathartic. I would argue that taking out the Ayatollah in terms of the number of people killed on 9/11 versus the number of people this regime has killed is more significant, and huge in terms of terrorism support of Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, these attacks in Dubai, the attacks from Hamas. This is the organization that funded and organized all terrorism, and we should feel good that we took them out. Doesn't mean, Alicia, and I'm done. Thank you for the time. Let you go. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't be nervous and worried about ramifications and unknowns. That's not what I'm saying. And I do think Congress needs to be brought into the loop. I don't think we want a protracted war in the Middle East. That's not what I'm saying. But we took out the world's number one terrorist guy and organization. He's gone. And we'll see what stands up behind him. But I'm going to let you run with that.
So a couple things, because I think everything is personal. I think how we judge our government should be, and everything should be a personal experience. I remember sitting with my mother, who you knew, in my living room, and we were watching Law and Order. I'll never forget it. And the network news interrupted to say that Barack Obama was coming on to make an announcement. And my mother looked at me, and no one had a clue, but she was like, "What would you?" And she goes, "They got bin Laden." She knew it, because what else at night? It was like 9-something at night. What else would you be interrupting regular broadcasting for? And that was it. And it was a great moment. And I hate to say it. I just got chills saying this. I hate to say it's a great moment when someone dies, but I'm sorry. When we got bin Laden, that was a great moment, right?
Yep.
The Ayatollah Khomeini, whatever the heck his name is now, I don't know what they call him. It's a great moment. Here's where, and I agree with you. And it's Hamas, it's Hezbollah, it's the Houthis, everyone that this regime funded to kill people, including Americans.
Yeah.
I agree. Here's where I go, I'm a little scared. My daughter came home this morning at 6 a.m. This is very exciting. Welcome home, Rena, from college for spring break. And it is such a great day for us.
Yeah.
But she's going to New York City with her friends.
Yeah. On
Saturday.
Yeah, I would. Okay. So as a parent, I hear you. I
am scared as hell, and I'm allowed to be.
Right.
And we're not going to stop her because we don't believe in doing that.
Yeah.
But they're going to go to theaters. They're going to go to plays. That's what they do. It's their thing. And we're not going to sleep for 72 hours.
That's a hard one. I hear you.
So that's where I'm at. And so was this the right thing to do? Maybe for the world?
Yeah, no, I wish I can't.
My family, I don't know.
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear, and I think most people with a brain would hear you on that. You know, the thing too, I'd say, Alicia, is we have done a lot. Whether you dislike this administration and president or not, took out Maduro, number one drug dealer, narco guy in the world, took him out. You look at what just happened in Mexico with their Mexican, taking out the head of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, bad people, and now this. But this is significant. I hope what I'd really worry about if I were you, but I don't want to get you more upset or worried, is I am more acutely concerned about China and Russia right now than I am anything else, because I know where the nuclear power is, and I know where the real weapons are, and I know how few countries in the Middle East have that. And that's why, people don't know this, that's why Trump and the Israelis, President Trump and the Israelis, are holding the red line that Iran and this guy was not going to get any closer to nuclear ambitions. Not going to happen. And obviously now it's not going to happen. But I hope the other nations around Iran and the Middle East step up here and, try and work towards peace in the region. And if they do, then Iran is very isolated, very isolated. But we got to see that happen. And I'm talking Egypt, I'm talking Saudi Arabia, I'm talking
Good luck.
all these other countries. If there's a time to stand up and put your money where your mouth is. But right now I'm worried. I mean, if you're China, let me just ask you a question. You're pretty smart at this stuff. If you're China and you're watching this and you get a fifth of your oil from through the Straits of Hormuz and you have ambitions on Taiwan and we have that carrier force in the Middle East in our military after this strike and they're still there, would you step into Taiwan right now if you were China with Putin already in Ukraine?
Well, let's not forget, Putin sent a statement yesterday that said we just opened the door. Now, I don't know what we opened the door to.
But I mean, if you're our enemies and you're watching Israel and the U.S. take out the world's number one bad guy and 500 of his commanders, and you're China with ambitions over, for example, in Taiwan, like Putin went into Ukraine because he could, would you flex right now or not? That's what keeps me up at night. Not so much who's left in Tehran. I worry about China and Russia because of the nexus they had with Tehran.
Well, and will America spread itself too thin? If I'm Russia and I'm China, and North Korea, let's not forget North Korea. Everyone forgets about that little bad guy.
No, you're right.
Am I going? America spread pretty thin. Now's our time.
Right, and that's my point. Because if you looked at our carrier force, and I said it on New Year's Eve morning, when everyone's talking about travel and New Year's as they should, I said on the show that morning live, watch what's happening in Venezuela. Keep an eye. Now, I didn't know on Saturday morning we were going to get Maduro, but we had so much naval presence. We had so much naval presence there. It was pretty obvious to me what was going to happen. And then when we increased a second carrier group to go to the Middle East, and Huckabee, the ambassador on Friday, said to all the embassy people, get out today. I felt on Friday this was coming. So I worry where it goes, and you should be concerned. I appreciate you speaking up and writing and talking and you being you. So thank you, Alicia.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to give my opinion. And here's my thought. I don't know if what we did and are continuing to do in Iran is the right thing to do. I will reserve my judgment. My first reaction was I did not approve. That was my first reaction. But then the Ayatollah was killed. And I went, okay, well, wait a minute. That's a good thing. I think all Americans should be able to do that. We have to be able to process through it.
But do me a favor. I'm going to say this because you wrote about this. If you are going to want to process through and hear from all points of view, listen to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and don't just dislike him because you think he's crazy because Trump put him in there. Listen to what he said this morning. We didn't start this war in Iran. We didn't start this. And by the way, if you go back to 9/11, guess who bin Laden was cozy with? I mean, this has been brewing. We just did it. And the alternative would have been, to your point, when you say you don't know if it was right, it would have been death by 1,000 cuts. Every time the Israelis or our CIA told us that Khomeini, the Ayatollah, was getting closer to nuclear ambitions, we would do what we did last June. We would take out a hole in the mountain somewhere over there until eventually he got one. And guess who the first country he would use a nuclear weapon on? Israel. So we just cut off the inevitable, in my opinion. But listen, thank you. Good luck with everything on the home front. Thank you, APX Seacoast Online. We'll be back. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse of H in a moment.
This is the Pulse of New Hampshire. Eve on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, we are back, and our poll question up on X this morning has to do with the news of the day. Welcome to March. Do you think it'll be a prolonged war in Iran and the Middle East involving the U.S. and Israel, but U.S., yes or no? And J-Dog, we had interesting results from Friday. Do you think affordable housing will get more affordable, or housing will get more affordable in 2026 in New Hampshire? I think most people are worried that it will not. And we try and have a lot of affordable housing solutions from our friends like at Procon and what they're doing at Somersworth. But you look at overall housing, and we're into March here, and it just feels like even though the winter time here is the slowest time of year, excuse me, to buy or sell or home, it seems, I think the prices are holding. And I've talked to more and more people. In fact, from Saturday's luncheon with the great group that I was with on Saturday in Manchester, and I'll give you just a snapshot of that in a moment. But if you look at the Military Officers of America, the gathering Saturday, the company TurboCam in Barrington, they're a great New Hampshire-based, family-owned and operated defense contractor doing some really high-end stuff for our submarines and propellers and airplanes and aircraft. An amazing company in Barrington, a wonderful patriotic company, making our warfighters even better with the equipment. And of course, we have to be paying attention. If you look at the operation just in the attack in Iran and Tehran, and the number of drones and missiles fired and tomahawks, and it's the companies. We have a lot of companies right here in New Hampshire that people don't even realize what BAE Systems does in Nashua, Merrimack. You know, you look at some of the operations, TurboCam in Barrington. But one of the things, speaking of affordable housing, that the CEO, the head of TurboCam, shared with me on Saturday is some of their top engineers, when they pay them very well, competitive, good private sector with good benefits, great young engineers, are moving to states like South Carolina or Texas for engineering jobs for one reason and one reason only. They love the culture. They love the team. They love the mission. They love everyone at TurboCam in Barrington, but they can't afford to buy a home anywhere in the area, whether it's Madbury, whether it's Barrington. And you look at the area, ports, the seacoast. And for a young person who's starting out, even if they're getting paid well, $1.5 million, 1.3, $1.2 million for a home to start a family with, versus going down to, I'm not saying do it, but down to Greenville, South Carolina, and getting a home for $486,000 with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a 2-car garage. Whereas in New Hampshire, that would be $1.3 million. You see what's happening. And we better wake up, because we're already an aging state. New England, New Hampshire, and Maine. Massachusetts is losing. What have they lost in Massachusetts? I don't really care. 200,000 people. Guess where they moved to? Because it's too expensive and too taxed in Massachusetts. But we're an aging state. And when you get these young people, young engineers, for example, working at TurboCams, and I say young meaning under 35, you need youth in your community to be the leaders, the families of tomorrow. If they're moving because they have a great job here, but if they can't afford a house or rent, that's not good. And I'm not saying we can muscle and manipulate the market. I mean, what's happening, frankly, is a lot of older, wealthy couples are moving into the coast of Maine, the coast of New Hampshire, and spending over $1 million because they have it, but they're over 60 years old and they're not going to be an engineer at TurboCam. And we need engineers at TurboCam to make what they're making there. And I only bring up TurboCam in a very positive light because I was able to spend time with the son of the founder. Him and his brother run the company, and hear this from employers that they're trying to figure out ways to keep employees that are young here due to the incredible cost, the high cost of living in terms of housing. And that's a problem. It's a big problem. And I talk to more people, younger people, professionals, and Portsmouth, New Hampshire better wake up. And I mean that sincerely. I love the history. I love Portsmouth. It's a great community, great downtown, but Portsmouth, New Hampshire better wake up, and wake up fast. Let me repeat that. I'm not talking politics per se. And yes, the Portsmouth mayor, Declan McEachern, is not running for governor, but they better wake up real fast, because what Portsmouth is losing is younger professionals. And I can't tell you the number of times I'm out and about and I'll meet a younger couple and they're in Dover or they're sitting in a restaurant or having coffee in Newmarket, or they're in Exeter, or they're in Hampton, but they're not in Portsmouth anymore because they can no longer afford to live there. I hear that over and over again, and I define younger people from mid 30s, under 40 years old professionals. Let's say 32 years old, 29, 30, 34. They can't afford to live in Portsmouth. And when you say, well, if you looked at all that, they say, no offense, it's a bunch of older, wealthy people that are buying $2 million condos downtown. And they are right. And how can a 38-year-old person who's working at UNH or working for a high-tech company or a business or a hospitality worker anywhere around Portsmouth afford a $1.8 million townhome at 35 years old? So you better wake up, because what's going to happen, these younger people are not going to be staying here even if the jobs are here. They're not going to be staying here even if the jobs are here. They're going to move. Fort Worth, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, South Carolina. These are the states that have jobs, parts of Florida, and affordable housing. I define affordable housing for a young professional under $500,000 for a primary home. What can you get? What can you get in New Hampshire and southern Maine and, for example, Kittery, York, Berwick, Wells, Kennebunkport, Dover, Portsmouth, Rye, Greenland, Stratham, Exeter, Newmarket, I said earlier. What can you get for $500,000 anywhere in those communities I just mentioned? What can you get? You know the answer to that. And no one's talking about it. We need to. Hey, Alexa, Google Play the Pulse of H. We'll tell you about the markets, crude prices. Oil prices are up. That's over uncertainty this morning. So you're going to see a spike in that. Doug Tengden will be coming up in the next hour. Speaking of Dubai and someone who's been over to the Middle East a lot, we're going to hear from a great New Hampshire business owner, executive who knows that part of the world very well. Going to talk about his observations on the uncertainties now and what happens next. John Decker, our White House correspondent, or Rory O'Neill, will hear the latest from comments from the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, this morning. The so-called Gang of Eight in Congress are going to be briefed by the administration today on the actions taken with Israel on Saturday and since then in the Middle East, primarily in and against Iran. And then tomorrow, more members of Congress are going to be briefed. Where does it go from here? And our poll question up on X this morning: do you fear a prolonged war with the U.S. involvement in Iran or not? Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Jack Keith, J-Dog, and the boards. Back in a moment.
Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, we are back, and we're going to come back to some of the local news. We'll hear from Anna Brown. Believe it or not, lawmakers are back at the State House here in New Hampshire. There's a busy week. We're going to get a live report in the 11 o'clock hour. That's everything from some housing bills and even voter ID. So Anna will check in, and Dean Spiliotis, Southern New Hampshire University, will check in as well in the next hour, talking about what happens now. Congress getting briefed more today, the so-called Gang of Eight on the key committees. Pentagon's had a briefing this morning. More troops, more U.S. troops are being deployed to the Middle East as part of this Operation Epic Fury, the Pentagon's saying, and that gets to our poll question. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, saying the president, of course, and the Pentagon, our military leaders, are looking at the military presence in the region. It takes a lot to do this. The attack Saturday was pretty much multi-location based on intel, including the Palace area in Tehran, where they got the Ayatollah and his team meeting on some CIA intel that was accurate, thank goodness. But they struck hundreds of different locations in Iran, but it takes everything from coordinated Tomahawk missiles from aircraft carrier, ships perched out there, as well as a lot of airplane, fighter jets, state-of-the-art fighter jets that flew in from Israel and other places to do this bombing. But now the troops, and you look at how many troops it's going to take. Could this be a prolonged situation or not? I do think most people would hope that it is not. And that's what members of Congress, including our own delegation, will ask. What are the plans here? How long? And I don't think we know until we know what's standing in terms of the regime behind the Ayatollah. People forget the supreme, whatever you want to call, Ayatollah has been running and ruling Iran with a iron hand, if you will, running everything since 1989 until Saturday morning, 2026. There you go. Now, what's going to be propped up behind him? Who's going to be running who's going to be calling the shots? Do they have the support? Now, it really doesn't matter. Let me be very candid. It doesn't matter if you're a supporter of the Ayatollah, if you have the support of the Iranian people. They could give a you-know-what. I mean, look how many thousands they've just have killed in this recent uprising. They don't care about public support. President Trump has said, now's a good time to take over your government. We pretty much have taken out the leadership, take over your government. But the people, and you got to remember, the people in Iran have been beaten down, tortured, imprisoned, shot at, killed. So it's like Beijing. Okay, yeah, go ahead, take over your government. But in Iran, it's probably doable. I think the key is going to be the military leaders who are left. Do they want to continue in the vein of the Ayatollah and the Islamic State, or do they want to make a change and maybe survive and live? Do they want to broker a deal with the U.S.? But I think what's happening behind the scenes, behind the news, not to sound like the intel world, but behind the scenes, what's really happening right now with Israeli intelligence, which is very, very good, by the way. Obviously, the Mossad and Israel's intelligence, probably second to none, but it was our own CIA that put the Ayatollah where he was Saturday morning in that meeting in Tehran when we took him out. But I think what's going on behind the scenes is the aftermath and trying to figure out what's going to be left there. Who are the powers who's going to be running the country? And I don't know if that's going to be decided in a New York second here. I think that's going to take some time. And my suspicion is we're going to know a whole lot more by week's end. But every day, starting today, we're going to get an update on the markets. You got to remember the stock markets, if you care, the economy, but the stock markets, they do not like. What don't they like? They don't like uncertainty. And what do we have right now? A lot of uncertainty. Even though we were decisive and successful in this Operation Epic Fury, taking out their leader and his 500 of his command, if you will, the military is gone. But who's left? And how do we find out who's left? How do we find out who's really running the show? Who stands up? Now, we saw this a little bit after capturing Maduro and his wife, bringing him back to New York City, or, the U.S. to face charges in Venezuela, with the vice president standing up. And when she, basically said, I'm in charge here. I don't know how this happens now. This was a dictator, totalitarian type situation with the Ayatollah since 1989. You didn't speak up. You didn't go to the restroom. You didn't do much in that country if he didn't say, okay. I'm serious. He ran the military, ran everything. His word, no other word. He's gone. He's dead. So how do you fill that void? Who is it? What is it? What is the form? How do we know if one of now we were having these talks in Oman. They were trying to broker deals that fell apart Thursday night that led to this attack, I think. President Trump was broadcasting as clear as he could. Hey, agree to this or else. You're not going to get a nuclear capability. Agree to this or else. Friday, Ambassador Huckabee in Israel said to staff in the embassy, and we had it on my show, and I said, if that's not a indication that something's going to be happening Saturday, I don't know what is. Get out today. Catch an airplane today on Friday, because there probably won't be any planes leaving Israel over the weekend. So you're going to see the hardliners behind the Ayatollah. Someone's going to stand up and try and grab this power vacuum or the power vacuum lane, and then others. And the question is, will someone more reasonable? I don't know if it's I don't know how you can have a democratic state. And we've already heard from the former crown prince thanking President Trump and the administration for taking out the Ayatollah. Iran's changed a lot since the Shah of Iran. Trust me. The royal family, or the whole way Iran was run when the fundamental Islamic State took over, and this is the second Ayatollah since 1989, this is what you got. And they are and were the number one terrorist organization in the world. They funded and supported Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, terrorism around the world. So I think the big question is, who's in charge now, and are we going to be able to communicate with them? And who's really in charge? It's going to take a few days. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about someone who's gone to Dubai quite a bit. His take. Hey, Alexa, Google, play the Pulse of an H. Back in a moment.